You've had the idea for 3 years. You know exactly how to execute it. You've researched it, mapped it, mentally lived the version of your life where it's already done. And yet, right now, you're lying on a couch. Again, everyone in your life has a name for what you are. Lazy, undisciplined, a wasted potential. Even you use that word sometimes, late at night when the guilt gets loud enough. But here's what nobody tells you. The laziness and the ambition aren't opposites. They're the same thing. In 2012, a neuroscientist at Vanderbilt University named Michael Treadway ran a study on motivation. He recruited 2 groups of people: high motivators, people who consistently pushed through discomfort to achieve goals, and low motivators, people who avoided effort even when the reward was significant. Then he put both groups in a brain scanner and offered them money to perform a simple physical task. The harder the task, the more money they could earn. The low motivators kept choosing the easier option. From the outside, it looked like laziness, like weakness, like they simply didn't want it enough. But the scans told a different story. The low motivators had significantly less dopamine activity in 2 specific regions: the striatum and the anterior insula. These are not regions associated with willpower or character. They are regions associated with the cost-benefit calculation your brain runs before every single action you take. Every time you consider doing something, your brain quietly asks one question: is the juice worth the squeeze? For most people, ambition tips that scale. The reward feels bigger than the effort. But for a specific group of people, that calculation runs differently. The effort always feels heavier than it should. Not because they're weak, because their dopamine system taxes them more per unit of effort than it taxes other people. They aren't lazy, they're expensive. Now here's where it gets interesting. Because that same dopamine sensitivity that makes starting so painful is the exact same mechanism that makes their vision so vivid. The same neural circuitry that amplifies the perceived cost of effort also amplifies the perceived reward of success. This is why the laziest person in the room is often the one with the most elaborate dream. They feel the future more intensely than most people. They can taste it. They just can't seem to build the bridge to get there. Psychologists have a name for this profile. They call it high fantasy, low execution. People who vividly imagined their success in vivid emotional detail were significantly less likely to achieve it. Not slightly less likely, measurably, consistently, reliably less likely. The reason is biological. When your brain vividly simulates an outcome, it produces a partial dopamine response, a taste of the reward before the work is done. And that taste, small as it is, slightly reduces the drive to pursue the real thing. Your brain filed the experience as partially complete. You told yourself the story of winning, and some part of you believed it. This is not a character flaw. This is your imagination working exactly as designed, in a world it was never designed for. For 300,000 years, your ancestors didn't need to visualize hunting a mammoth. The mammoth was right there. Hunger was real. Danger was immediate. The gap between wanting something and needing to act on it was zero. There was no version of ambition that didn't immediately collide with reality. Then we built a world where you can spend 10 years wanting something without ever being forced to confront it. Where the gap between the dream and the work is so wide and so comfortable that an entire personality can live inside it indefinitely. The laziness isn't a lack of wanting. It's a surplus of imagination in a body that was built for urgency. And then there's the other piece. The one that nobody in the productivity industry wants to talk about. In 2018, researchers at the University of South Florida published a study on what they called the high-effort trap. They found that people with high ambition but low follow-through shared one specific cognitive pattern. They didn't underestimate the reward. They catastrophized the process. Every time they approached a meaningful goal, their brain didn't just calculate the effort required. It simulated everything that could go wrong. Every failure, every embarrassment, every version of the story where they tried and it didn't work. And because they were imaginative, they simulated it in high definition. The result was a paralysis that looked, from the outside, exactly like not caring. But it wasn't not caring. It was caring so much that starting felt like walking into a room where the worst version of yourself was waiting. Psychologists call this self-handicapping. When the stakes feel high enough, some people unconsciously avoid the attempt entirely. Not because they don't want to win. Because losing, after actually trying, would be the one thing they couldn't come back from. The couch isn't comfort. The couch is armor. So let's put this together. Because there's a portrait here that nobody has ever drawn for you honestly. You are not lazy and ambitious in spite of each other. You are lazy because you are ambitious. The same sensitivity that makes the dream feel real and close and worth having is the same sensitivity that makes the effort feel costly and the failure feel catastrophic. You were handed a Ferrari engine and a broken accelerator pedal, and everyone around you has spent your whole life asking why you aren't driving faster. Now here's what the research actually suggests you do with this. And it's not what you think. Ettingen, the same researcher who proved that visualization backfires, spent the next 20 years building the solution. She called it WOP. Wish, outcome, obstacle, plan. The key insight was not to stop imagining the success. It was to immediately follow the success image with a clear, specific image of the obstacle. What will get in the way? Not vaguely, specifically. The exact moment where you will want to quit. The exact Tuesday afternoon where the couch will win if you let it. When you train your brain to simulate both the reward and the friction in the same mental motion, the partial dopamine hit stops happening. Because the brain no longer files it as complete. It files it as incomplete, unresolved. And an unresolved loop is one of the most powerful motivational forces the human brain has. Treadway, the dopamine researcher, found something similar. The low motivation group performed nearly identically to the high motivation group when the task was broken into small enough increments. Not because willpower increased, because the cost-benefit calculation changed. A small step doesn't trigger the catastrophizing. A small step doesn't feel like the moment your entire self-concept is on the line. A small step is just a small step. The brain that taxes you more per unit of effort can still move. It just needs smaller units. You were never the problem. The unit size was. Here is what no one has ever said to you directly. The people who changed things, built things, created things that lasted, they were not the ones who found effort easy. Many of them described the same war you are having with yourself right now. The same gap between the size of the vision and the weight of beginning. What separated them was not discipline in the way you've been told to picture it. It was not willpower or grind or waking up at 5 a.m. and suffering louder than everyone else. It was the moment they stopped treating the gap as evidence of their failure and started treating it as information about their wiring. You feel the future more than most people. That's real. That sensitivity is not a bug. It is the most valuable thing about you. It is also the thing that has been turned against you your whole life by a world that only rewards motion and never asks what it cost you to sit still. The laziness was never the enemy. It was the signal. The question was never why you weren't moving. The question was always what you were actually afraid to lose. You already know the answer. You've known it the whole time. You were just waiting for permission to believe it wasn't your fault. Now you have it. What you do next is yours.